everyone, and welcome back for this new episode of Coding Design Systems. Today I'm your only host, like the weeks before, because of George is really busy right now, but that's good. Today we've got an episode dedicated to testing and front-end testing, and to do so, we've got our fantastic guest, Gil Tayar. Hey, how are you?
Hi, great. I'm great. I'm happy to be here. Really.
Yeah, for me too. It's a real pleasure to have you today. We met originally in Croatia,
Croatia.
yeah, last year, yeah,
Yes.
for Infobip,
Yeah.
which was
hmm
a really great conference, folks. If you
Really
had the
enjoyed it.
occasion, let's go there. It's really nice. The next edition will be in September. Will you be there?
Yeah, I see.
Awesome. I will do my best to be there too. So it will
Great.
be great to be live and to see you again.
Yeah.
So, maybe I can let you introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you? Where are you working? What you are doing? And specifically
Okay.
for this topic of testing, what it is.
Okay. First of all, I'm Gil. I'm from Israel, Tel Aviv. 35 years of experience. I'm like the one of the old ones from the 80s, late 80s, early 80s. uh, So yeah, plenty of experience. Like I started on the web and like non-professionally in '95, but professionally since 2000. Like Escape 3 was my first browser. Since then, obviously, I haven't done only JavaScript. I've done lots of backend, some amount of front end at companies like Wix, where I did what is called now Wix Velo, which is like coding inside a Wix site. The implementation, obviously, not coding itself. And an important company for this talk is I was part of Apple Tools. Apple Tools is not again, so this is not an advertisement. Uh, um, Apple Tools is a visual testing company. They know how to visually test components in apps, which is super, super important for front end. I'm guessing we'll talk about that. I designed and built, well, me and my team, obviously, what is called the visual grid. The visual grid enables us to take one screenshot and then build it around and then take the screenshot across multiple browsers at the same time and very, very quickly. So we'll be talking about that and the importance of visual testing. And my current company is Round Forest. At Round Forest, I am the head of web development, both back end and front end. And as part of the front end, I've been doing like lots of research and implementation of really weird things like design systems. This is the first time I'm doing a design system. Micro-frontends, which is for me very, very important, and and native ESM in the browser. Last but not least, I'm sure some of you have heard of the proposal of putting types into JavaScript. It started with a bang 31st of May, March, sorry. And I was part of that. I was one of the authors of the proposal. It was a great honor for me uh, and an interesting ride. So I think that's it.
Yeah, congratulations for this last one because I saw the announcement and I was just wow. I know this guy, you know.
Yeah. That was something like for me. I mean, wow! I'm like in a company with really amazing people like Rob Palmer, Daniel Rosenwasser, even Anders Hesselberg, which who implemented like designed C Sharp, TypeScript, Turbo Pascal. I mean, he's a hero for me. I added him to my repository. I'm like, oh my god, I don't believe him. And with this crowd. So I'm like not that big of a but it's been an honor. It's been a real honor.
Yeah, not everyone can contribute to the ECMAScript specification, you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? My first question is probably a bit aside of the topic of testing, but totally related to this proposal. What led you sorry to this the idea of this proposal of adding types into JavaScript like we have in TypeScript? What the main idea behind this one?
Well, the story, but there's a behind the story is that I wrote a blog post. You can find it on my blog. If you look at Gil Tayar blog, you can find it in Google. I wrote a blog post about JSDoc typings. JSDoc typings is the ability to write TypeScript, but with everything in the comments. So you write at param number X, at param number Y, and then the TypeScript knows that this function receives an XY with a number param. And it does the whole type checking just like TypeScript. It's called JSDoc typing. It's really wonderful, and I love it. And I'll explain why in a second because it's very important. And Daniel Ehrenberg from the TC39, and a big and important figure in the JavaScript and Node.js community, um, saw the blog post, read it, really liked it, through some typos, which is funny. Because then he said, "What about you and me writing the proposal for this idea of mine, which is types as comments, where JavaScript will just ignore the." And I said, "You must be kidding me! Yeah, I want to be part of that." So we like wrote it. I wrote it in a weekend, obviously, as quickly as I could, and then Daniel went over it, and we munched it, edited. It took a year. It took a year because we wanted to get key people on board, like Microsoft TypeScript, Daniel Ossenbasser, Rob Palmer from Bloomberg, and others. Also discussing what we want to inside the proposal, what not, and like that's the story. But the reason you asked for the reason, and the reason is important. Um, I think we're addicted too much to tooling. I think we're addicted too much. I'm not against tooling at all, but the basics should be no tooling. The basics should be like in the good old days, like 95. Sorry, it's not because I'm old. I've like you write code and then you F5, you refresh the page and it works. That should be how JavaScript works in the browser, just like HTML and CSS. You write the HTML and it works. And we have everything in place. We have native ESM in the browser. Uh, we have modules, so we don't really need bundling, at least not for development. And the only thing missing for me is that, like today, almost 50% of code is written in TypeScript, and I really, really wanted to do away with transpiling there. And then Daniel Ehrenberg came, and for me, it's a realization of a dream where we can write TypeScript or Flow or Hegel or any other type system code, and the browser will just run it. And then if we have that and native ESM, then at least for development, we won't need any tooling besides like type checkers, linters, etc., but not for running. And for me, it's a simplification. I want to simplify JavaScript. I want to simplify how front end is developed, and that's my vision.
That's really interesting because this is exactly what is behind the idea of the new modern front-end tooling like tools like Snowpack and Vite and so on, where you don't have to bundle everything when you are in the development process because you're not your final user. You don't want to focus on what you are good at, which is developing a feature. And we
Exactly.
want our tools to be dedicated to this task and not focused on production build and so on, which is
Exactly. And at Round Forest, because it's a vision and a dream, we've gone to the place where I don't even need Vite or Skypack or anything. I just use native browser ESM, and using import maps and a little bit of magic, it just works. Obviously, for production, it's a different story. But but for development, we just develop, and the server that serves the HTML and JavaScript is just a regular server. It's not a dev server. It's just a regular like Nginx or whatever, and it's possible. It's possible. I'm aiming for that.
yeah, we definitely have those technologies available and ready to do so. So
Yes,
yeah, that's
5 years.
yeah.
I predict 5 years.
I take the bet.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's let's go back on the testing part and let's
Right.
talk a bit about it. So you mentioned your vision and how developers should work and focus on their work and what is the place the test take in this vision for you in the web development front end development process?
Yeah. A lot of people see testing as a separate part of coding, and at Round Forest and at Apply Tools, I'm saying no. Um, Testing, there's no. I just finished coding. Now I'm in the testing part. It doesn't work that way. Coding and testing are one. You write your in the backend, especially. It's very easy. You just you test through you check your features through the tests. Obviously, in front end, it's much more difficult, but everything is around the tests. We write a feature. We also write the tests for it. The developer writes, and that is how I see testing. But there's another part. There's another part that makes this work, because if you don't do it like, and in a second I'll explain why I don't think it can work. And the idea is modularity. Uh, if you take an app and make it monolithic, like huge 30-page app with lots of pages, and you build it as a monolith and you test it as a monolith, then no amount of trying to make test developers write tests or whatever will save you. Uh, Testing has to be in a modular form. So a design system is the perfect thing. A design system is exactly that. It's you're taking part of the app, even if it's one app. A lot of people say, if I have one app, why do I need a design system? And I disagree. Even if it's one app, you want to take those components that are part of the app and move them to a separate package or whatever and test that separately. Once you have that, you can go to the app and start modularizing it. Take like a set of pages and test them separately as a separate package, etc., etc., etc. The idea is never ever to try and test everything at once. I've seen projects where all the tests they were saying, yeah, we're testing everything, and you look at it, and all the tests are end-to-end tests. So we have this app, and it's like 20 pages, and the test suite takes an hour. And the test suite in front end that takes an hour will never actually, even if everything there's no bugs, will never run like 100%. There's always stuff.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was. So a test suite that runs for an hour on all the app with lots of end to ends will basically be flaky. From you can never. I mean, it's front end. You can never have 100% non flakiness. It's just almost not possible. And the way to deal with that is to have modularity of the app. Test these as a separate package. Test these as a separate package. Test these as a separate package, and then combine them only in the end. Once you have that, then you can test each package, each set of pages as and those tests take like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you're done. So that is my philosophy. One, test everything. Two, modularize your app and test each module separately.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is we're on the same page concerning this vision, and I have this concept directly coming from the IT security, which is named Swift left. In security, when you are working on an application or an architecture or whatever you want, an app, when it involves security, the philosophy is you will be better at preventing any risk. So shifting left the complexity one step before, rather than trying to patch everything and be just trying to curate everything, but you don't have enough energy. And if you are trying to figure out what should be go wrong before it happens, then you will be you will be more protected against different kind of attacks. And
Absolutely.
if we apply that to front-end architecture and front-end development by swifting left the complexity into the design system and burning into design systems the test, as we said, in components, but also a different kind of features. Let's say if you work on a video player, right now your video player has to take care of the place he will have in the viewport to adapt the kind of media that is displayed and the size of the media, but it also has to adapt regarding the bandwidth, because if you are on 3G or on 5G or behind your Wi-Fi, you won't serve the same kind of media with the same quality. But you have also to take care of the state of the battery, because if the battery is draining, you will probably want to switch back to a less quality media to save a little bit of battery, and so
Mm-hmm.
on. So if you swift this complexity into the video player component rather trying to handling that at the app level, you can test it, you can work on the feature in the component, you can fix the feature in the component in case of any bug, and you don't have to worry about breaking things into the application after that. And
Absolutely.
it's definitely the best thing that I see in terms of features into a design system right now, because it's definitely a new mental model, but a new way to think of it.
Absolutely. And I think that what Angular and React and Vue came, and I have to give Angular JS the credit, even though I'm a React person. Angular started us on our way to think of a front end app as a set of components. With hierarchical. You start with button, but then you progress continually higher up the hierarchy. And today it's absolutely possible to take a React component or an Angular component, I'm not sure of Angular, but a Vue component, and test it separately. And testing it separately is so important because once you test it separately, it tends not to change too much. So all those tests, all those hundreds of tests that test your design component are like, okay, we've run them once and we're done. We're good. And now the app, when testing, needs much, much, much fewer testing. And that's definitely a shift left. Always shift left towards developers, towards design system, towards modularization. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's a new era that is coming. And by the way, when you're working on a complex app, you mentioned the fact that when working on a big monolith, but when you're working on a complex application, you're necessarily working with different people, different teammates, and so on. So what's your insights on organizing, I don't know, your code base or your app architecture to help people working and covering the different parts in terms of testing? You said you never ever want to test everything. So what are the most important part to test, and how do you distribute these in your team when you're working on front end development?
Okay. So my approach is it's not unique, but it's leading edge. First of all, we work in a monorepo, and we do not use Lerna or whatever. The reason we use it in work in a monorepo is because we want to modularize our app. We want to have a design system package, and we want to have a video component package, and we want to have a login page package, and a register page package, and a dashboard page package, etc., etc. Each one of these pages is a full npm package by itself, with their tests, with everything. So let's say a new developer comes to Round Forest, and I don't need to. They don't need to like build the whole app and look at the whole app and like be bewildered by the hugeness. Let's say I want them to fix a bug in the login page. They go to the login page package, fix the bug, and they're basically done. Well, not absolutely, but basically done. The ability to um, to separate the app into multiple packages or modules is very important because those modules if designed correctly, are understood independently. They can be built independently. They can be tested independently. And we're going the micro front end way, they can also be deployed separately. So I can, for example, take the login page, fix a bug, and just deploy it to production without touching any of the other pages. And that is crazy, crazy important for testing purposes. Because when I run the tests on the login page, I need to run only the tests on the login page because I know I've touched only the login page. And that is basically my methodology. Modularize everything. And once you do that, you can scale, I'm exaggerating a little bit, as much as you want because a developer will only focus on one module, one package at a time when they're developed. And because the tests are not like for the whole app, and to run them, you need like 40 minutes, the developers have a very good incentive to write like those 2 or 3 new tests that they need for the feature that they're implementing. And that is very, very important. We'll talk about what tests there are in a second, but the important thing is if you modularize your app, developers will have incentive to write the tests.
Yeah, and it's also a great way not to be polluted, by the external context of the application. As you said, I have to work on the login page. I just focus on the login page, and that's all. And I don't want to work on
Exactly.
everything else.
And that is how we scale our code base and have as many developers as we want and as many teams as we want. I learned that at Wix. I learned that at Wix backend. I'm now implementing it. It's much more difficult. Frontend is always more difficult from my point of view. It's much more difficult, but it is possible to modularize a front-end app. Yep.
You mentioned the micro-frontend. Could
Yes.
you give us more insight about it? What it is, how it
Yes.
works?
The general idea of micro front ends. Right, I know that one. Is take the app and modularize it so that each part of the app each module of the app can be deployed separately. It's very similar to microservices, where your backend service is actually a lot of microservices talking to each other via HTTP or message queues. So micro frontends are modules or that can be deployed separately. Now, the big question, which hasn't been answered yet, is how do we modularize a frontend app? Okay, and there are two main ways. One which people are investigating right now, and I have to think, it is mostly wrong. Sometimes it's right, but mostly wrong. Is the natural way, okay, which is component. I want to modularize the app. The app is made of components, so I'll make some of the components micro front. And to do that, you need like things like Webpack module federation and all kinds of really nice technologies that implement. That's one. I call them my component micro. The other way, which I prefer, is what we call page microfront. Each page or each set of pages is a microfront. So, for example, login and registration, one microfront. Dashboard, another microfront, and product catalog, whatever, is another microfront, and etc., etc., etc. For me, this is the more natural way. Um, it's more natural because it's more webbish, and because we're using server-side rendering, each page is deployed separately as a server, which serves the HTML of the page and does the server-side rendering and everything. You can use React, you can use Remix, you can roll your own, but each one is like a mini app. And the links between the pages are the connections between the microservices. It's very webby. In the component micro frontend world, because a component is hosted inside a parent component, the connection between them is a lot of times not very loosely coupled. There's a very high coupling between the components. It works in some situations. For example, if I have a dashboard page and lots of dashboard, squares with information, the component micro front end works there because you can't. That's the natural way of separation. But I think page micro front end, where each page is separate, is the way to go. And we're doing that at Round Forest, and it's working pretty well. It's working pretty well. Yeah.
Okay, so if I follow you, each page is like a standalone package, something like that,
Yes.
isolated in the monorepo, and they all work as a standalone application, and they communicate
Yes.
to each other. Okay, that's nice.
Via links. It's just
Yeah, yeah,
links.
yeah. Okay,
You click on slash dashboard on link with slash dashboard. It goes, and slash dashboard is connected to the page server, we call them, which serves the dashboard. Exactly. Each page is a mini app. It could be next, and the nice thing is the login page could be Next.js, and you want to try out Remix, fine. Let's do the product catalog page with Remix. No problem. You can mix and match and see which one is best. Try it out. Um, it's working. Where does it fail? There's always trade-offs. Okay, there's always. Uh, let's say you want to change the footer or the header, okay, of a page. Now you need to deploy all your pages because all the pages have the header footer in them. So any major change in the design system or in the header and the footer will necessitate deploying across the pages. Yeah.
yeah, I see. But because we are working on small applications, we're focusing on testing just small parts, and I guess it's um, less prone to error to redeploy everything when you're just working and testing in isolation some kind of part, some kind of application now.
Exactly. Usually, what you do is you do vertical changes.
Hmm.
You do a change to a specific page, not so much horizontal, where you do for all the pages. So usually, just fix a bug deploy and add a feature deploy. You just deploy one page, maybe two, and that's great. It's working really well, and a developer can focus on a feature on a page. They focus on that feature, deploy, knowing full well that all the other pages they don't have to test them. They don't have to do anything because they were they're still there in the same version.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, how we can talk about versioning too, but no, that's too much. So let's focus on testing. What we mentioned that there's different kind of strategies in terms of testing, unit testing, end-to-end testing, and so on. What are your recommendations on those ones?
So it's the Kent Dodds approach. Guillermo Rauch wrote a while back ago, like a few years ago, 5 years, even more. He wrote a very, very, very important sentence. He said, "Write tests, not too many, mostly integration." It's beautiful. It's like it's poetry. Uh, really, it's
Yeah,
one
for sure.
simple tweet, one line, and it encompasses so much. And Ken Dodds saw that and wrote a whole blog post about it. Beautiful. And that is my approach. My approach is um, very few unit tests. Lots of integration, and we'll talk. Oh, yeah, exactly. Lots of integration tests and very few end-to-end tests. I call it the diamond because the regular pyramid is the pyramid of tests. So lots of unit, less integration, very few end-to-end. Kent Dodds and myself and others believe in the diamond. Very few unit tests, lots of integration, very few end-to-end. Kent Dodds calls it the trophy. Oh,
Yeah.
same thing. Uh, I think Spotify calls them honeycomb. I don't yeah, there we go. I'm sure there's a testing thing there. Anyway, uh, and what are and let's talk about what are unit test integration and end-to-end. Unit tests are tests of functions, not components. Not okay. Unit tests of functions, where a function is a function called validate, like validate email. Like you throw it the emails, you just that it returns true or false, and you're good. Uh, Sometimes you need them. The classic example is validate email. You don't want to do validate email in an end-to-end test. Try it again, click, click, click. It'll take you hours and it'll be flaky. But testing a function with hundreds of emails, that's like 20 milliseconds. Uh, um, that's units. They have their place, but the problem with them is even if you test all your units, you don't know the app works because most of our code is glue. The next level is integration, and for me, testing a component is integration because you're dealing with HTML, you're dealing with events, you're dealing with a DOM. That's not unit. A lot of people think component is unit test and multiple components together or integration test. I'm fine. It's just the naming. Integration for me is working with the DOM and working with that. Now, there are two approaches. The Cypress approach, yes, we do test it in the browser. And, well, the just DOM approach, where just DOM is a simulation of DOM in the browser, in Node.js. So you basically render your React component or view or whatever, you render it in the DOM in Node.js, and then you click on a button, etc., and test the side effects. Most of our tests at Round Forest are just DOM tests. Now, a lot of people don't know that they're using JSDOM, but they are. If they're using React testing library with Jest, that's JSDOM. The underlying technology is JSDOM. A lot of people think they're running the test in the browser. They aren't. They are not. They're running it under Node.js. And the beauty of it is because you're not running in the browser, you can run hundreds of tests in seconds. It's just like unit tests. They're crazy, crazy fast. And they enable you to do things lot less flakily. They're very synchronous, not so much asynchronous. So it's really, really easy to use them. You need to figure out because just DOM is not exactly like DOM and it's not exactly like the browser. There are some things you can do, but once you figure it out, they're great. End to end. As I said, I never do full end to end. I do end to end of my micro-frontend. So I test one page. And yes, I do test it in the browser because in the end you have to test it under a browser. But I just do sanity. I just do sanity of the page. Make sure that the happy path works, and we're good because most of it was tested under JSDOM. Obviously, if something can be done in JSDOM, I test it in the browser in the end. But there's a set of tests that are not part of the classic pyramid and don't exist in back. It's visual tests. Visual tests, up until now, you could have tested the app and everything would have worked and all your tests would have passed, but it would have looked ugly. Like if you've missed something in your CSS and it looks like, all that,
Yeah.
all the tests will pass. Visual tests are exactly for that. Visual tests are the opposite of functional tests, which is what we did now. Visual tests don't care about if your application works. They only care about how it works, how it looks like. And those are very, very difficult to do because visual is always difficult. And the way visual tests work is all the tools, whatever tool you use, is they take a screenshot of the page. You do click, 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 take a screenshot, click, 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 take a screenshot, etc. Now you have like 5 screenshots. The first time the test runs, they just save the screenshots as a baseline. The second time it runs, it compares them. They're the same, good. The test passed. They're not, you don't know. You don't know if it's a bug or a feature.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is it
uh,
a change?
is the button green because of a bug in the CSS, or is the button green because that's what the designer wanted the change to be?
Yeah.
And the test can't know. So it stops and says, well, there are diffs, and now it's up to the human, as we call him, the person. Uh, I like it's not a computer, so it's human versus AI. It's up to the human to say, yeah, this screenshot is actually okay. This screenshot is actually okay. This one's not a bug, etc. If the screenshot is okay, if it's accepted, then that's the new baseline. If it's rejected, then it's a bug and it's not a new baseline. So all these tools have one, the ability to take a screenshot, the ability to diff it, and the ability to manage the screenshots, accept, reject, etc., etc. The human interaction. All the tools have that. The best tools do taking a screenshot the best way, diffing it, which is crazy difficult, and managing it. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Apple tools. I don't work there anymore, but I still think it's the best tool. Pretty expensive though. I still think it's worth it. But if not, you can go. Another commercial tool is Percy, and the open source tools. Well, I haven't tried them, but it's difficult. It's difficult, and the reason they're difficult is two reasons actually. When you're testing a page, and even when you're testing like your video component, right? Uh, you want to test it in Chrome and Safari and Firefox, and you want to test it in this width and this width and this width and in iPhone and an iPad and all that. And you can't really. You don't want to run your tests again and again and again all days. And testing on Safari is like crazy, and testing in whatever. So what commercial tools like Percy and Apple tools have, and I think Apple tools has the best implementation because I built it, uh, is they're not taking screenshots. They're taking what are called DOM snapshots. So when you're taking a screenshot with Apple tools and Percy, you we grab the DOM, the whole DOM, and we grab the CSS and the PNGs and the fonts and the SVGs and whatever, upload them to the grid, and the grid in parallel recreates the pages in Chrome, Firefox, Safari, this with that with iPad, whatever configuration you want, and then takes lots of screenshots and then diffs them. Everything in parallel. So you can have like I've seen a 2,000 component design system. Not 2,000 components, but components in various states.
Yeah.
So disabled, enabled, etc. So in general, 2,000 little screenshots of little components run in 2 minutes.
Wow.
Testing across Chrome, Firefox, like about 10 different configurations. This with that with, etc. etc. Crazy fast. And you can do that only with commercial.
Yeah.
That's visual tests. Very, very important. And testing for me of is not complete until you have visual testing. And at Round Forest, we started with the basics, and then very quickly said, okay, we need to do visual testing and start.
So what you are saying is that commercial tools that do visual testing are not using WebDriver based tools. They are not.
Oh, no. The SDKs, you can use whatever you want. You can use WebDriver IO, you can use Playwright, you can use Puppeteer, you can use Selenium, Cypress, whatever. When they're taking the screenshot, they either take a real screenshot like pixels using the tool. They know how to deal with it. They know how to scroll to get the full page, etc. Or they use WebDriver IO and whatever to take the DOM snapshot and upload it to the. So you're still using your favorite. Actually, a lot of times the end-to-end and the visual are the same. Okay, so think about it. Think of an end-to-end test where you're click, and then you want to check something. You can check that this text has this value and this div has this value, etc., etc. That's a lot of tests. Or you can, boom, just take a screenshot. And you're testing everything all at once, and you don't even need to assert and think of selectors and whatever, the problem of selectors, they just go away because you don't care. You take a screenshot and just diff it. So yeah, use your regular tools. I mean, I use WebDriver. I was thinking of Playwright. and just use whatever tool you want on top of.
Okay, really, really interesting because um, in Backlight, which is so our design system editor, we are trying to put a lot of advanced features to help people to better understand how it works and how you can work with it and so on. And
Mhm.
we work on a tool integrated to the source control panel, which allow you. Can I showcase it to you?
Sure, would love it.
Maybe if I take, let me go to another component which has a feature enabled. If I go to something like Stitches data kit, let's say something like that. I've got a button, so I've got a story with my button, and my button is
Hmm.
using some tokens like color tokens. So if I want to change my tokens, for example,
Hmm.
I just make a branch to update the color with a typo because I often do typos in my branch names, of course.
But
And
you fixed
if
it.
exactly, I have to fix my fingers. And if I don't know, if I update, let's say this color, and it's finally a green one. So red 15 is finally 500 is finally a
Hmm.
green one. My button, because my button is using this token, then the color is updating on my button, and in
Right.
my
Nice.
source control tool, I can see the different changes that occurred on it. So I can see the changes in my current application, but I also have I have a cut diff like a regular one in GitHub, but I also have a live diff which allow me to have a visual diff between my two versions before pushing it. So it's a it's a
Nice.
it's a first step. Uh, Before it doesn't mean that you don't need visual testing, because of course you need visual testing to
Of course.
ensure your final application have the look that you're expecting. But
Hmm. Hmm.
having the ability to see the changes introduced by a change inside your design system and visually see the changes is
Absolutely. I think it's complementary. I mean, Apple supports branches and it can diff the branches and everything, but those are static. What you're seeing here is the live version of that component. So you can test behavior. You can look at it like in a dynamic and live environment. It's totally different. I think those are complementary and not yeah, definitely. I can see the value in both. You should be integrating Apple.
Yeah,
Talking to
yeah, but it's to be okay. To be perfectly honest, is probably on the way for from our engineering team, because they're working a lot
Woo!
of different topics, and yeah, the fact that right now you have the ability to to test your component directly. I had an example that I prepared, which is just here. I've got a simple React component, and
Mhm.
I've docked my documentation, which is importing my component in MDX, so I can embed my result and so on. But I also have a test section in my component where I can declare different tests. I'm a big fan of the testing library framework,
Right,
because
React.
it allows you to have this abstraction in terms of interactions and so on. So
Absolutely.
I can run a rendering test to ensure that the component is properly rendered, and that the different elements are properly put in at the right place. And I can also test events directly by simulating the click and different candidates, but still using
Hmm.
testing library. And I'm still in my editor, but I have a panel with my test, so I can, each time I save something, and each time I'm saving a different implementation in my button. In case if I just, I don't know, switch a value in my component, if I save it, it will rerun my test. I hope so, but not in my example. Oh damned.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, okay, because I missed something, I guess so. let's do something like this. Let's do something. No, okay. Wait a second. Stay concentrate, Mads. And okay, if I move that like this, and if I save, it should not it should rerun my test, but it doesn't. Okay, so no worries. But yeah, the
The
idea
demo
is that
gods
okay,
are angry.
exactly, it's still the same thing, but yeah, but the idea is here that you have to access everything into at the same place. So be
Absolutely.
ready to handle different tests, and not only rendering tests, but also um, like you said, testing front end is not like testing backends. We've got a lot
No,
of things that is coming in the front end that is um, occurring in the front end that doesn't exist on the back end, like event interactions, user interactions, visual stuff. All of that doesn't exist in the back end.
absolutely.
What's your opinion about testing the components in a design system? What where should we push it um, further? Which should we just stop at? I don't know, integration test, or should we push it a step further in I don't know, visual testing for components too? Or is it
Oh,
too much
definitely.
for just a
No, no,
design
no.
system environment?
Absolutely no. Um, well, I would say if you don't have tests for design system, why create a design system? But that's not true. There's value in design system, even if there are no tests. But if it's already there, I mean, why not test it and avoid having to test it in the various apps you're using? I mean, it totally makes sense. And testing something in isolation is always better than testing it inside another app. And doing visual testing is like easy. All the tools have like storybook testing, where you just give them a storybook and they run through all the stories and just take screenshots and do all that. So if you have a storybook, you're done. It's like zero testing time. I'm a huge fan of testing design systems, and of course we do.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it's one of the reasons we are making design systems.
Yeah,
Just to have
absolutely,
this ability to abstract any elements of your
absolutely,
application. That's
absolutely.
that's really great. I've got just one last question. What are your because you know nerdy people? What are your favorite libraries? And you mentioned Apply tools for visual testing, but is there any
Mhm.
kind of libraries that you really love for I don't know, for unit testing and for integration test? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I'm using Mocha, like
yeah.
Mocha and Chai. I'm not a fan of Jest. I'm, I'm, I'm I'm not anti-Jest, but like as close as possible, especially in the back end. So I like simple tools like Mocha Chai. Um, for integration tests, we use Jest DOM and React Testing Library.
Mhm.
Uh, and React Testing Library is great. Thank you, Kent Dodds, for that. Um, what else? Oh, we use Test Double for mocking.
Yeah.
Because we don't use test, we don't have mocking. Test Double is the only library that supports mocking ESM modules. So that is one of the reasons we use it. The other reason is because it's great. Uh, but definitely Test Double supports ESM, and we're using ESM like completely. So we need ESM support for that. What other tools? ESVent, obviously, and others, but we won't get into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are my favorites.
that's
I,
great.
I have to admit that for browser automation, I love a lot of them. WebDriver IO because you can always count on Selenium.
Yeah.
Cypress because the developer experience is amazing. Uh, Puppeteer because it's cute and fast and funny, and Playwright because it's cute, fast, funny, and portable.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm still on the fence regarding. Currently, we're using WebDriver IO. I'm thinking of moving to Playwright.
Not always easy to find the right tool to implement what we need.
No, and browser automation is
Yeah, the fact that over the last, I don't know, 10 years, something like that, we saw that much tools and libraries coming in the just the big field of testing. We constantly have new unit test frameworks, new end-to-end frameworks, new visual or broader automation tools, and so on. It's definitely complex field that is not totally addressed. There is still the need of new mental model, new mental tools, new things to work with.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being with me for today. We just scratched the surface of testing, but this is the first episode that we had regarding it. So that's a nice first step, and for the next one, I will probably start to implement complex tests or something like that to showcase. Would be nice.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Is there anything that you want to add for our viewers before ending
Uh,
the stream?
no, test, because test removes the fear we have of deployment. So yeah, test
I
everything.
totally agree. I totally agree with you. It's yeah, test is life.
Yep.
Don't forget it.
It's the way not to die.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you again so much for being with me, and enjoy the rest of
Thank
your
you.
day. And see you next week, folks, for a new episode. This time dedicated to a design system for emails integration and emails development. So it's a new area and a new way to talk about the power of design system. Thank you so much, and yeah, see you next week. Bye bye.